In the early 18th century, the once mighty Persian Empire lay in ruins. For over 200 years, the Safavid dynasty had ruled, but its glory was a distant memory. By 1722, the empire was a hollow shell, rotting from within due to corruption, internal strife, and weak leadership. Seizing this opportunity, a determined force of Hotaki Afghans marched from the east, laying siege to the magnificent capital, Isfahan. The city, a jewel of art and culture, was starved into submission. The fall of Isfahan marked the end of an era, plunging Persia into a decade of darkness and chaos. The Safavid Shah was deposed, and the empire shattered. With the central government gone, a feeding frenzy began. Foreign powers and local warlords descended upon the fractured nation like vultures. In the north, the Russian Empire, under Peter the Great, pushed down from the Caspian Sea, seizing key provinces. To the west, the Ottoman Empire, Persia's age-old rival, launched a massive invasion, conquering vast swathes of territory, including western Persia and the Caucasus. Meanwhile, the Hotaki Afghans, having conquered the heartland, struggled to assert control over the entire country. Their rule was brutal and contested, leading to widespread rebellion and further fragmentation. Persia was no longer a unified empire. It was a patchwork of warring factions, a land torn apart by invaders and its own people. For the average Persian, it was a time of immense suffering, despair, and uncertainty. The future seemed to offer nothing but perpetual war and foreign domination. It was into this desperate power vacuum, this crucible of national humiliation, that a figure of incredible ambition and ruthless determination would emerge. His name was Nader Beg, a man of humble origins from the Afshar tribe, a Turkic group known for its pastoral and nomadic lifestyle. He was not born into royalty or high nobility. His early life was one of hardship, a shepherd boy who became a skilled warrior and eventually a local mercenary leader. In an age where lineage meant everything, Nader had nothing but his own genius and unwavering will. He saw the chaos engulfing his homeland not just as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. While others saw only ruin, he saw a ladder to be climbed. But how could a man of such low birth command the loyalty of an army and unite a nation? He needed legitimacy, a banner under which he could rally the Persian people. He found it in the surviving, yet powerless, heir of the fallen dynasty. Prince Tahmasp II, the son of the last Safavid Shah, had escaped the fall of Isfahan and established a rump state in the north. He was a king without a kingdom, a symbol of a glorious past with little real power. Nader, with his growing band of disciplined fighters, pledged his allegiance to the exiled prince. This was a masterstroke of political theater. He adopted the name Tahmasp Koli Khan, which literally means slave of Tahmasp, the Khan, by presenting himself as the loyal servant of the rightful Safavid heir. Nader wrapped his personal ambitions in the cloak of royal legitimacy. He wasn't just another warlord carving out a fiefdom. For himself, he was the champion of the Safavid restoration, the man who would drive out the invaders and place the true king back on the throne. This servant strategy was brilliant. It allowed him to recruit soldiers from across Persia, men who would fight for the Safavid cause but might have hesitated to follow a mere upstart. Every victory he won, every piece of territory he reclaimed, was done in the name of Shah Tahmasp II, strengthening Nader's position while keeping his ultimate goals hidden. He was playing the long game, patiently building his power base under the guise of selfless loyalty. But Nader knew that political maneuvering alone would not be enough. To defeat the powerful armies of the Afghans, Ottomans, and Russians, he needed a new kind of military, one fundamentally different from the armies of the past. The old Safavid military system, based on feudal levies and tribal contingents, had proven utterly ineffective. It was slow to mobilize, poorly disciplined, and lacked a unified command structure. Nader decided to build something new from the ground up, a professional, national, standing army, loyal only to its commander. This was nothing short of a military revolution in Persia. The centerpiece of his new army was a corps of elite infantrymen known as the Jazayirki. These were not part-time tribal warriors, but full-time, salaried soldiers, drilled relentlessly until they moved and fought as a single unit. Their name came from their primary weapon, the Yazel, a heavy, long-barreled flintlock musket. The Yazel had a much longer range and greater accuracy than the standard muskets of the era, giving Nader's infantry a significant advantage on the battlefield. He recruited these men from various tribes and regions, intentionally mixing them to break down old tribal loyalties and foster a new national identity within the army. Their allegiance was not to a local chieftain or tribe, but to Nader himself, the man who paid. trained, and led them to victory. The Jazairki were the backbone of his forces, a disciplined wall of firepower that could stand firm against enemy cavalry charges and systematically pick apart enemy formations from a distance. Complementing his elite musketeers, Nader invested heavily in creating a modern and mobile artillery train. He understood the critical role of cannon in siege warfare and in breaking enemy lines during pitched battles. He gathered European advisors and Persian craftsmen to cast new, more powerful cannons and trained his gunners in the latest techniques of artillery. His artillery was not a slow, cumbersome afterthought as it had been in previous Persian armies. Instead, it was designed to be mobile, able to keep pace with his fast-moving infantry and cavalry, providing devastating fire support wherever it was needed on the battlefield. He standardized the calibers of his cannons, simplifying logistics and ammunition supply, a small but crucial detail that many of his opponents overlooked. This combination of discipline, long-range musketry, and a powerful, mobile artillery force gave Nader a tactical system that was far superior to those of his enemies. He could control the battlefield, dictating the terms of engagement and systematically destroying his foes, with his servant strategy providing political cover and his revolutionary army providing the military muscle. Nader Kohli, the former shepherd boy, was now ready to begin the reconquest of Persia. The stage was set for one of the most remarkable military careers in history. In 1729, Nader's newly forged war machine faced its ultimate test. He marched east, toward the heartlands of the Abdali Afghans, a confederation of tribes renowned for their peerless light cavalry. The world was about to witness a clash of titans, the raw, untamed storm of the Afghan charge against the disciplined, industrial-age firepower of Nader's modern army. This was the Herat campaign, the first major proving ground for a military revolution. The opening move came near the fortress of Kafir. The Abdali commander, Aliyar Khan, a seasoned and respected leader, felt confident. He had his main force ready to engage Nader, but he was also expecting a large column of reinforcements to arrive and strike Nader's flank, a classic pincer movement that had worked countless times against less sophisticated foes. But Nader was not a less sophisticated foe. He was a master of psychology and deception. Nader knew about the expected reinforcements. Instead of trying to intercept them, he devised a plan of breathtaking audacity. He detached a small, elite column of his own troops, ordering them not to engage the enemy, but to take a wide, circuitous route around the battlefield, far out of sight. Their only instruction was to beat their victory drums and make as much noise as possible as they approached the Afghan rear. As the main battle was about to be joined, the sound of distant drums began to echo across the plains. To Aliyar Khan, this could mean only one thing. His reinforcements had been intercepted and utterly crushed, and now Nader's victorious troops were closing the trap. Panic began to ripple through the Abdali ranks. The psychological blow was devastating. Aliyar Khan, believing his plan was in ruins and that he was about to be encircled, ordered a hasty and disorganized retreat. The Battle of Kafir was won not by a musket shot, but by a drumbeat. Nader had outthought his opponent before the first real charge had even begun, proving that the mind of the general was the sharpest weapon in his arsenal. But the real challenge was yet to come. The Abdalis, though momentarily shaken, were far from broken. They regrouped and prepared to unleash their most fearsome tactic, the full tilt, all-out cavalry charge. For centuries, this human tsunami had shattered infantry lines across Asia. Afghan horsemen would gallop forward in a seemingly chaotic mass, firing their Yazels' long-barreled muskets from the saddle before drawing their swords for a terrifying melee. It was a tactic built on speed, ferocity, and individual bravery. It was designed to overwhelm, to shock, and to break the morale of even the most stalwart foot soldiers. This was the tribal storm that Nader had to weather. His entire military philosophy, his investment in drill, discipline, and firepower, was about to be put on trial. Could his formations of professional soldiers stand against the legendary fury of the Afghan horsemen? Nader's solution was elegant in its simplicity and brutal in its execution. He didn't try to outmaneuver the charge. He planned to break it head-on. His infantry, the Jazairchis, were drilled to perfection in a technique that would become the hallmark of European armies decades later, the rolling volley. The infantry was arrayed in deep ranks. As the Abdali cavalry began their thunderous advance, the first rank of Nader's musketeers would calmly kneel, take aim, and unleash a coordinated, devastating volley. The effect was horrific. Horses and riders tumbled to the ground, creating a bloody and chaotic barrier of bodies. But the charge didn't stop. It came on, wave after wave. As the first rank reloaded, the second rank would step forward, fire their volley, and then step back. Then the third and the fourth, and so on. This created a continuous, rolling wave of gunfire, a relentless meat grinder that chewed up the Afghan charge before it could ever reach Nader's lines. The momentum of the attack, the key to its success, was shattered. The horsemen were met not with a single volley they could weather, but with a sustained, never-ending storm of lead. The air was thick with smoke and the screams of men and horses. The Afghans, who fought with incredible personal courage, found that bravery alone was no match for this machine of death. Their charge faltered, broke, and then dissolved into a full-scale rout. For the first time, a commander had developed a systematic, repeatable counter to the seemingly unstoppable Afghan cavalry. Nader had proven his point. Modern drill and mass firepower could, and would, defeat raw tribal valor. It was a tactical revolution that would echo on battlefields for the next century. The age of the lone warrior hero was ending. The age of the disciplined, professional soldier had begun. Defeated in the open field, the remnants of the Abdali army did what any cornered force would do. They fell back to their main stronghold, the mighty city of Herat. This was no mere fort. Herat was one of the great cities of the East, protected by massive, ancient walls and a wide moat. Its towers and ramparts bristled with defenders, confident that they could withstand any siege. They had withstood them before. An assault would be costly, and starving them out could take months, even years. The Abdalis believed that behind these walls, they were safe. They believed Nader's army, an army built for mobile warfare in the field, would be stymied by the challenge of siegecraft. They were wrong. Nader had not only modernized his infantry and cavalry, he had also invested heavily in the third, crucial branch of a modern army, artillery. He brought forward a formidable siege train, including heavy cannons and, most terrifyingly, large mortars. These were not the inaccurate bombards of old. Nader's mortars were crewed by trained gunners, capable of lobbing explosive shells with terrifying precision. Once his siege lines were established, Nader began a systematic and relentless bombardment of Herat. The psychological effect was even greater than the physical destruction. Day and night, the massive mortar shells would arc high into the sky, their screeching descent followed by thunderous explosions within the city walls. Buildings collapsed, fires started, and panic spread among the civilian population and the garrison alike. There was no escape. The very walls that were meant to protect them now trapped them in a living hell. The defenders' will, already shaken by their defeats in the field, began to crumble under the constant, explosive pressure. The raw bravery of the Afghan warrior was useless against an enemy he couldn't see, an enemy who could rain death from the sky. The siege did not last for months. It lasted for a few brutal weeks. Broken by the relentless bombardment and with no hope of relief, Alihyar Khan and the Abdali chiefs finally surrendered. They walked out of the gates of Herat, not just defeated, but completely subjugated. Nader had not only conquered a city, he had shattered a warrior culture's belief in its own invincibility. The Herat campaign was a stunning success, a perfect demonstration of Nader's new model army, where strategic deception, tactical firepower, and overwhelming siegecraft worked in perfect, deadly harmony. Ever wondered why some historical figures get nicknames like the Great or, in this case, the Napoleon of Persia? For Nader Shah, the title wasn't just a casual comparison. It was earned on the battlefield and in the halls of power, mirroring the rise of another military prodigy centuries later. Just like Napoleon Bonaparte, Nader Shah was a man who clawed his way up from total obscurity. He wasn't born into a powerful dynasty. He built one. His currency was sheer, unadulterated military genius. He didn't just win battles. He rewrote the rules of warfare in his era. Time and again, he faced armies that dwarfed his own, yet he emerged victorious. This wasn't luck. It was a testament to his tactical brilliance, his ability to inspire unwavering loyalty in his troops, and his revolutionary approach to military organization. He completely reshaped the Persian state, making the army its very backbone, its central nervous system. Everything revolved around funding, equipping, and deploying his war machine. This laser focus on military might allowed him to achieve what seemed impossible. One of his most legendary triumphs, the Battle of Karnal, is a masterclass in this strategy. Deep inside India, facing the colossal army of the Mughal Empire, Nader was spectacularly outnumbered. On paper, it should have been a swift and crushing defeat for the Persians. But Nader's tactical acumen turned the tables. He outmaneuvered the mule commanders, exploited their weaknesses, and delivered a decisive blow that sent shockwaves across the continent. This victory wasn't just a military win, it was a statement. It demonstrated that numbers meant little when faced with superior strategy and leadership. This ability to snatch victory from the jaws of certain defeat, to consistently overcome overwhelming odds through pure tactical skill, is the core of the parallel with Napoleon. Both men were masters of the audacious gamble, architects of stunning victories that defied all conventional wisdom and left their enemies bewildered. They were not just conquerors, they were military artists, painting their legacies on the canvas of history with bold, decisive strokes. Nader Shah is often called the last of the great Asian conquerors, and when you look at a map of his empire at its zenith, it's easy to see why. His domain was immense, a sprawling territory that stretched from the rugged Caucasus Mountains in the north, all the way to the fertile plains of the Indus River in the east. He had effectively rebuilt the Persian Empire, restoring it to a scale and power not seen in centuries. He pushed back the Ottomans and the Russians, securing his borders and projecting Persia's strength far and wide. But his ambition didn't stop there. The crown jewel of his conquests was undoubtedly his invasion of the Mughal Empire in India. This wasn't just a raid, it was a campaign that humbled one of the wealthiest empires on earth. After his victory at Karnal, Nader marched on Delhi. The city was sacked, and its treasures were systematically plundered. The sheer wealth that flowed back into Persia was staggering. Among the spoils were two of the most famous and priceless artifacts in world history. The first was the legendary peacock throne. This wasn't just a chair. It was an opulent masterpiece of gold and jewels encrusted with countless diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and pearls, a symbol of Mughal power and unimaginable wealth. Its capture was a profound statement of Nader's dominance. And then there was the Koh-i-Noor, the Mountain of Light. This diamond, one of the largest and most famous in the world, became the centerpiece of his loot. Its journey from India to Persia and its subsequent travels through history is a saga in itself. By bringing these legendary treasures back to his capital, Nader wasn't just enriching his treasury, he was appropriating the symbols of power of a fallen rival, cementing his own legacy as a conqueror of unparalleled stature. The scale of his empire and the legendary wealth he acquired placed him in the same league as figures like Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan, a world shaker, whose military campaigns redrew the map and redirected the flow of history. But the story of Nader Shah, like so many great conquerors, is a tragedy. It's a stark reminder that military genius and political stability are not the same thing. The same fierce determination and iron will that forged an empire eventually turned inward, becoming a destructive force of paranoia and cruelty. As Nader aged, the pressures of ruling such a vast and often rebellious territory began to take their toll. He grew suspicious of everyone around him, seeing conspiracies and traitors in every shadow. His court, once a center of military dynamism, became a place of fear and mistrust. This paranoia reached its horrifying peak in a devastating family tragedy. Convinced that his own son and heir, Reza Koli Mirza, was plotting against him, Nader made an unthinkable decision. He ordered his own son to be blinded. This act was not just an instance of personal cruelty, it was a catastrophic political blunder. It robbed the empire of its most capable successor and sent a chilling message to his inner circle. No one was safe from the Shah's wrath. His brutality escalated, crushing rebellions with extreme prejudice, imposing ruinous taxes to fund his endless wars, and executing anyone he suspected of disloyalty became the norm. The loyalty he had once inspired through victory now curdled into terror. His most trusted officers, the very men who had helped him conquer half the world, began to fear for their own lives. They realized that the Shah's paranoia would eventually consume them all. The end came swiftly and violently. In 1747, a group of his own officers conspired against him and assassinated him in his tent. The death of the tyrant was instantaneous, and so was the collapse of his empire. Without its singular, unifying force, the vast territory Nader had conquered immediately fractured. Warlords, governors, and tribal leaders all vied for control, and Persia plunged back into civil war. His grand imperial project, built on conquest and fear, shattered the moment he died. It was a classic shattered myth ending, mirroring the fate of Alexander's empire, which fragmented among his generals. Nader Shah's legacy is therefore a dual one: a brilliant military conqueror who resurrected an empire, and a paranoid tyrant whose own cruelty ensured it would not outlive him.